The Rape Gang Inquiry report is out, and as the title of this segment from Lotus Eaters says, it's worse than you can possibly imagine. I believe Dan from the Lotus Eaters described it on X as Britain's Holocaust. That's how bad it is. Over 250 cases. That's just the ones we know about. 250,000 cases, excuse me. And that's the ones that we know about. That's the ones that we know about. It's so much worse than you can possibly imagine. And a lot of us can probably imagine quite a bit. Anyways, let's take a look at this one. And let me go ahead and get the browser audio unmuted. That way you can actually hear all this. There we go. All right.
So, it's been about a year since Baroness Casey published her independent audit, which was then the casus belli for Labour to jump aboard the far-right bandwagon and announce their 3 limited statutory inquiries, which have appointed their chair, only one location, and as of yet, well, they've watered down the terms of reference and haven't even started gathering evidence. But we have the announcement that yesterday, 8 new cases are going to be reopened by Operation Beaconport, and they are re-examining cases.
They had to be embarrassed and shamed and opening these back up again. That's what it took. Otherwise, this would have never have happened.
That were between January 2010 and March 2025 that were prematurely closed due to a lack of evidence, even though it's possible they might catch these child predators. And this government task force is going to have a lot of work on its hands in the coming months because Rupert Lowe has finally published the independent Rape Gang Inquiry report. This is going to be very rough listening. There is no substitute for actually reading it yourself.
You might have seen earlier in the week, Asmongold read the entire thing on stream, which God bless him for doing that. Needed to be done. I will say something that I've been ruminating over is, since I have gotten into the whole professional audiobook narrator business now, honestly, I've got a good mind to do an audiobook version of it myself and just give it to Restore Britain for free. I was like, it'd probably be a 6 to 8 hour recording. Could probably take me a few weeks, but I'd be happy to do it, and I'd do it for free because that's how important this is. Because let's face it, nobody's reading books anymore. Nobody's reading reports, white paper reports like this anymore. They're all too ADD or too actually fucking illiterate to be bothered with reading an actual book or a white paper report. I'm reading books and reports. You would be in rare company, Anglo. That's one of the things that I told Darwin when he was considering republishing a lot of his old works. I was one of the first people who sort of told him in a group chat, look, you should really consider doing audiobook versions. Ebook is all well and good, but I can tell you, hardly anybody's reading books these days. If the numbers are to be believed of people surveyed, they're just not reading books like they used to. And publishing houses are just in a state of near collapse at this point. Self-publishing is the way to go, but also at the same time, don't expect anyone to read your works in any large numbers because most people they can't be bothered, or they are actually that illiterate, or they have that little of an attention span, in which case they might as well be illiterate. They do listen to audiobooks, though, while they're on the go. It's not going to have their full attention, but it'll at least get some of their attention while they're doing other things. So yeah, that's what I'm ruminating on, is doing an audiobook, creating an audiobook version of the Rape Gang Inquiry report. And I mean, they could have somebody already working on that. I don't know. I feel like I have to do something. And this is the one contribution that I can make in the service of my people. I know, had Asmongold not read the report on stream, the whole thing, it would never have gotten any coverage. And it was something to which even the Restore Britain, the party, and also Rupert Lowe extended rather public thanks for all that. I'm not expecting, doing something like that, I don't expect to get a public acknowledgement or some letter of thanks from Hang on a minute. My apologies for that interruption, chat. Apparently someone decided to just barge in and it could not wait. I feel like Caesar in New Vegas. How do I put this basically enough? It's a philosophical theory, the type you'd come across if you took time to read some books. Yeah, it'd be great if we could get more people to read books, but, you know, that's like trying to push a gigantic boulder uphill. Anyways, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Strongly considering, and I probably will go ahead and just do it, just to have it as part of the professional reel of things I've done. Not doing it for any public accolades or thanks or anything like that, but just feel like I got to do something. This is something we cannot sit silent on this. And I honestly, that's one of my big fears is that, okay, this whole report is out. This is bad. Like, unfathomably bad. Like, in any other time period, this would have resulted in mass deportations just as a start. Would have also resulted in mass executions, Nuremberg-style massive show trials, and it would have prompted such a response that just it would have echoed throughout the centuries. And it's been absolutely suppressed by the media. Hardly anyone is talking about this in normie circles. And even in certain countries, the UK included, things like this are more than likely getting suppressed because they do not want people talking about this. Because this not only brings the legitimacy of the current government into question and indeed just destroys it completely, this is the sort of thing that could bring down the monarchy, destroy the entire security apparatus. It just completely obliterates any claim to legitimacy on any level of the British government, that they have allowed any of this to happen. And for so long, I don't think the gravity of all of that has really sunk in for a lot of people of just how serious this is. And it might not sink in for a long time, if it ever does.
I did, and it kept me up all night, and it'll keep everyone up that reads it. So consider this segment a primer for your own reading. We're going to try and summarize as best we can some of the
It's a massive
worst
report.
case studies, some of the statistics and the findings, the recommendations. And then at the end, we're going to dedicate a few minutes to just outlining some of the responses to this. Because nothing, not your own reputation, not political partisan interest, should come above delivering justice for child abuse victims. But unfortunately for some people it has. So just to summarize the
Hopefully
findings,
get into those reacts.
it says court records and official inquiries show...
We've got a few of those reacts that we can get into. Spoiler alert for you. Some of the people reacting to the Rape Gang Inquiry report, they did the Sam Hyde meme. It's like prophecy fulfilled. Do not forget that these people want you broke, dead, your kids raped and brainwashed, and they think it's funny. One of them was actually giggling and laughing over the whole thing because they wanted to get lost in semantics and irrelevancies. And they haven't known a moment's peace since. And you know what? That's a good thing, because they don't deserve to know any peace if that's going to be the reaction.
That around 87% of those convicted in group-based child sexual exploitation cases bear distinctly Muslim names. Those who have read Peter McLaughlin's Easy Meat, or have read the previous Quilliam report, or just have eyes and looked at the mugshots would have been able to predict these patterns.
It's mostly Pakis. It's mostly Pakistani Muslims that form these rape gangs and terrorized young girls across Britain. That's the short answer. That's the TLDR. They're not compatible with any form of Western civilized society. And I don't care how long they've been in Britain. I don't care if their family's been there for multiple generations now. They have to go back. No room for them. No room for them in the UK. No room for them anywhere in the West. Send them back from whence they came. Simple as. And that's the moderate solution.
It's a quick thing there. Majid Nawaz's gotten so much heat for saying, well, it's 85% at least Muslim perpetrators of these grooming gangs.
Yes.
And yet every single piece of research and documentation that's come out since has just reinforced this point or increased that number.
Yeah, and if it's not Muslims, if it's not some variant of Mohammedan, it's gypsies. That's the other thing. I think we've got a Count Dankula video we'll try and get to. That poor girl that was double wielding blades in Scotland. Yeah, it turns out completely and totally vindicated. And naturally, nobody in the media wants to talk about that.
Validated at the time, even because the National Crime Agency's 2011 report had essentially the same statistic. I think it was 75% of type 1 or type 2, it might have been, child sexual abuse offences were committed by distinctly Asian, Pakistani men. And then the Quilliam report,
Yeah, they're not Asians. They're Middle Easterners. They're Mohammedans.
which was Ed and
We need to stop
and
calling them
Majid,
Asians.
came up with a similar figure. And of course, even though they were two practicing Muslims and ex-jihadists, they still got called racist and Islamophobic by Ella Cockbain anyway. It's also important to note that in that statistic of the 87%, there are some white British gangs. It is mentioned in the report, but also included in that are Sikh ringleaders. That has happened before, and quite frequently.
Oh yeah, if they're not Mohammedans, they're Sikhs or they're Gypsies. There's a big three: Sikhs, Muslims, Gypsies. The three big demographics of problem children in Britain, and probably throughout most of Europe. Really, not compatible. They have to go back.
Either the customers of these gangs, or some of the customers end up being drug-addicted madams who are women that lure the girls in because there's a high overlap between the Pakistani drug trade and also child trafficking.
So for clarity, out of all of the rape gangs or gangs that of coordinated activity to commit sexual violence against children and young women, 86% are comprised of Muslim men.
87% of the
87%.
convicted perpetrators have Muslim names.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, we know that some of the ringleaders have been prosecuted, but we know there are hundreds, possibly thousands of perpetrators.
We don't even need to do the whole per capita thing here. That is an 87%, the vast majority, full stop.
Yes.
I mean, but a couple of points on that. The first thing is the rape gang inquiry is not how do we say religiously or ethnically partisan, right? So there are cases.
No, it's just the results turned out to be like that. The results, the pattern that emerged, just revealed that. It wasn't. They were just asking the simple questions of who's responsible for all of this. Turns out, Muslims, Sikhs, Gypsies, but overwhelmingly Muslims. They're the ones responsible. Overwhelmingly. We don't even need to get into, as you said, per capita. A strong, painfully obvious pattern has emerged here that this whole multicultural, neoliberal experiment is a complete and total failure, and as so many on the dissident right have said for so long, when you import the third world, you become the third world. There is no such thing as magic soil. These people do not understand, do not appreciate, and can never understand or appreciate our ways, our way of life, our values. They will, as the saying goes, they will see your antique wooden door, your antique oak door on the front of your house. All they will do is just take that and use it for firewood because they are cold. They're animals, a lot of them, and there is no place in our part of the world for people like that.
In there of women who were groomed by white people,
Yes.
not just men, by the way, white men and women, who were failed by the institutions and didn't get justice. So this isn't just that the institutions are only being politically correct to cover up Pakistani Muslim rapists. It is also that they just don't have any respect for the victims of these crimes at all.
No, if anything, they will oftentimes arrest the victims. How many times have we heard stories where the victim got arrested, or the victim was taken into police custody and then released back into the hands of their abusers? It really is beyond any sort of multiculturalism or political correctness. It is a deep-seated, built-in structural hatred of the native white British population. That is what we're dealing with here. The state despises its own citizens. I think it even goes beyond anything like class, which is still a big thing in the UK. This is more than just, they're, a bunch of slutty, trashy slags, and, they probably had that coming. No, this is more than that. This is a deep and abiding hatred for anyone with white skin. This is anti-white hatred and the enabling and fueling of a white genocide. And we are, much as I completely support Restore Britain and would love to see Rupert Lowe in number 10, I really feel that the protests that we've seen throughout the month of June, kind of a harbinger of what's to come, but also a clear sign that we are not going to vote our way out of this. We're not voting our way out of this. The people in government have made peaceful revolution impossible. Therefore, they are making violent revolution inevitable. They won't listen to the people. The people have said for decades, stop it with this immigration business. We're full up. We don't need any more of these people. And every single time, they haven't listened. And now, they're overrun. They're overrun with these massive brown hordes, these savage animals that see young white British girls as sexual playthings. And so entire generations of young British women bear this trauma, these scars, this fear, making the possibility of continuation of their family line nigh impossible. It is mate suppression as white genocide, or white genocide in the form of mate suppression, on a massive scale. It is something we may never recover from as a people. And if we do recover from it somehow, we certainly will never be the same again.
So it is both things at the same time. And secondly, it'll be tens of thousands having raped, chilled justice.
And have been given cover by their own community, whether they're prosecuted or whether these familial clans that operate based on solidarity to the Ummah or to your own ethnic group, they know this is going on, and they can phone each other up and just say that I've got a girl captive. Would you like to come around to my house and face no reprisal for that? They all know this is going on, and they feel no sympathy for the victims either.
David Starkey was correct to describe it as clan politics.
Yes.
It is clan politics.
Yes.
It's very clear in here. Also, as for the ethnic compositions of the perpetrators, they found an analysis of 264 convictions for group-based child exploitation between 2005 and 2017. It found that 84% were South Asian, ethnically, vast majority, Pakistani Muslim. Only 7% were white and 8% were black. So again, if we're doing not just per capita, but gross, the overwhelming majority are ethnically Pakistani background. There are quite a few, obviously, Somalis as well. The smallest ethnic group there is
Middle Easterners.
This is
and
also
Africans.
this data is coming from the police and judicial establishment, which has been a chronic failure against these victims as well. So if these numbers are this shockingly high when it comes to the ethno-religious element here, you can only assume that the real situation is considerably worse.
No, these are conservative figures. These are conservative estimates at best. Government agencies that are gathering this data have a vested interest in making sure that it doesn't look that bad on paper. Because if it doesn't look that bad on paper, then their legitimacy is not brought into question, and they can make it seem like, oh, we're doing the best we can. It's just, overwhelmed by the realities of the modern world or some bullshit like that. Always some sort of excuse of, we just need more money. We just need to raise people's taxes and take more money from them. And then we'll really get to the bottom of it this time. We pinky promise. No, you're not. No, you're not. You haven't done that already with what you've been given, so why should we trust you with any more? You've already been given so much. Roughly half of your income in the UK gets taken away in taxes. And for what? For the police force that most crimes go completely unsolved. For a national health system that is failing, has structurally failed. For a government that is completely and totally unaccountable to the people, to the point where your vote almost does not matter, and for most practical purposes really does not matter. For a country that is now poorer than the poorest state in America, and that would be Mississippi. The UK is worse off economically and standard of living wise than the state of Mississippi. And I've been through Mississippi. Mississippi is not terrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible. Beautiful place, lovely people. But I want to live there? Don't know about that. Given the choice between Mississippi and the UK, I'd be tempted to go with Mississippi. I mean, at least they're fucking trying. You can't say that about the British government anymore. They're not even trying anymore. It is and has been the same old song with them for so long of just manage the decline. They have no idea how to govern properly or to make Britain into a proper country again. No one in charge knows how to do that. All they know how to do is the mediocrity of managed decline. Mississippi, at least going off the vibes, has enough of an inferiority complex about itself that they want to do better. There is at least that spirit amongst the people of, yeah, you know what, we might be bottom of the ranking, but we're going to try. We're still going to try, because there's no reason that Alabama and Louisiana, to the east and to the west of us respectively, and Tennessee to the north of us, should have it better than we do. We can do just as good a job as they can, if not better. So let's have a go at it. There's at least that spirit of we want to try and make things better. Something that you see throughout most of the Deep South. We want to at least try. Can't really say so much for Georgia these days, but other parts they're trying. The UK? Like, no mate, not going to get any better. Just manage to decline. Whole thing's going to crash. Just need to make sure we jump out of the airplane before it crashes, pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, go find some quango or non-profit or something like that with a no-show job, go run that into the ground next. It really is a pathetic mentality. And people wonder why I don't go back. People wonder why I'm so bullish on the United States and even other parts of the world. That's because I don't want that sort of managed decline thinking to infect my psyche. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to be around people and structures that say yesterday was the best that we can manage and tomorrow is just going to be worse and we've just got to ride the whole thing down and tried to do a soft crash landing. It's like, no, why don't you fix the bloody aeroplane and get us flying again? To which they just come up with excuse after excuse of why it can't be done. I'm not interested in hearing why it can't be done. I believe it can be done. It just takes the will and the courage and proper leadership to do that. Don't talk to me about how it can't be done, and spare me this whole crabs in a bucket mentality that seems to have just absolutely infected like a mind virus so many of my people. I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not going to be like crabs in a bucket. I want to be a place that believes a rising tide lifts all boats. I don't believe in rug pulling people. I don't believe in pulling up the ladder behind me. I want to see as many people succeed as possible. And I want to be in environments where the chances of that are high. You're not going to find that in the UK, unfortunately. That's why I don't go back. Also, there's that pesky little thing about freedom of speech. I enjoy more of that living in exile in America than I do over in the UK. I'd be arrested for a lot of the things that I say and post online over in the UK. I've got colleagues and friends in the space that I wonder how they're even going to be able to keep doing what they do if the government is absolutely hell-bent on going so far as to ban VPNs. I don't know if a lot of this stuff will work or not. Most of it probably won't. I know the social media ban in Australia is not really working out. Kids are a clever lot. They know how to get around a lot of things. Probably going to see the same thing happening in the UK.
It's essentially like finding a couple of ants running around on
Yeah.
your floor and not knowing where the actual colony is yet.
Yeah.
The number of victims estimated on pages 12 to 13 as well. So they extrapolate from Lord Pearson of Rannoch's projection in 2019 that there was around 250,000 victims minimum. And again, that was 7 years ago. Sarah Champion in 2017 said it could be up to 1 million. I've seen.
Yeah, all right. Most spaceman on Earth will have none of that. That comment's getting deleted. And honestly, as soon as I can figure out how to do it, you're banned. So none of that, please. Actually, I'm fairly certain. Let's go ahead and work on that right now. There we are. Apparently it's not banning, it's just muting. But yeah, you're muted forever. It's because you decided you want to act like a retard. Anyways, back to the video.
Seen some people quibble with the maths on this, but frankly, this is the best estimate we get. When you look at, from previous reports in Rotherham and Telford, the victim to perpetrator ratio, so the victims that were identified by the previous reports, and you extrapolate it across the country in all of the districts it's been found, up to 40% of districts in the country, you find that 250,000 is like the bare minimum. Yeah.
But it's also such a giveaway as well. I've seen this debate in the last 24 hours on social media. Well, how have we got to this number? What's the statistical credibility that sits underneath it? And you kind of go, if that is your response to the mass gang rape of 11-year-old girls, surely that says a lot about your worldview. And it's the same thing that we saw in the aftermath of the Henry Novak footage and the Belfast footage. It is like to go to the, the detail or go to the process or go to, that as a diversionary tactic from what is really going on.
I've seen some people in good faith question it, like Adam Wren, who's obviously runs Open Justice and does the transcripts. But there have been absolutely some people that have tried to nitpick and undermine the findings of this.
Oh, yes.
Even at the expense of the victims who gave it.
And they are getting absolutely ratioed and bodied on social media, and they fucking deserve it. Especially that one cunt who was nitpicking over county lines or something like that. Turns out that she's some fucking grifter that Reform tried to send in to sabotage the whole thing. And she claims that she offers some type of public service, but it's not really. It's some type of grifting scam where people have to pay in order to have access to any of these so-called services. So really, she's just a grifter.
At the time, gave their testimony and are hoping that private prosecutions will be brought forward. So, like, you're doing this at the expense of potential action. That's disgraceful. We know from this that the earliest recorded crime that the inquiry found was actually in 1955, so immediately after the earliest waves of Mirpuri Pakistani migration to the country after their dam burst and the area flooded. I've seen crimes that have been committed in Canterbury and Rotherham from 50s through the 70s. So this just seems to be a pattern of behavior that occurs wherever you bring these men, particularly Pakistani, but broadly Muslim men.
Look at the pattern of behavior in their own country.
Yeah, I mean, quite. But there's a particular kind, and obviously you know this well. There's a particular kind of like racial.
They can't. They almost can't help themselves. They're just compelled to do this sort of evil because so many of them are just. They're not only evil, but pretty fucking stupid too. Probably because so many of them are inbred.
Aggravated rape that is committed in these countries. I mean, one rape gang was just prosecuted in Australia, if I understand it as well.
Right. Yeah, Carl, what you just said is a very simple point, but a very important point, that if these people are coming from a particular culture where this is widespread and it is prevalent and it is socially normalized, it is therefore obvious that they are more likely to then bring that into this country. You know, you don't just suddenly, when you get off the dinghy and hit Dover, put up a photo of Joe Root on your wall and start singing "God Save the King."
Well,
like,
British values.
Well,
I mean, that's
this. I know, but it is self-explanatory. But that is still the primary argument for the whole integration piece, which is, well, with a few education programs, you can change that entire worldview, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no.
A few clauses
never
of
works like
consent
that.
will not civilize these people.
No.
And again, it's everywhere.
What does ultimately civilize them, if they can be civilized to an extent, is brutal violence, public floggings, corporal punishment. That's what these people understand. That's all they understand. It's the only thing that works with them. It's unfortunate, but it's true. That there are some people that you cannot reason with.
So here, the inquiry has identified 149 local authority districts that have been either suspected or confirmed to be affected by this all across the UK. And I'm just going to zoom out. This is the map of where these gangs have been operating. And it was a particular shock to me, I know this is just anecdotal, but in southeast London, Bexley and Bromley are in red. That's basically Kent. I mean, London has the highest population of Muslims in the entire country. Yeah.
So I'd kind of expect,
but not that area. Again, you haven't been to that area, right? No. I've grown up there all my life. It is essentially church fates and schools, and to know that they've been there, even it's like literally
nowhere safe.
Wiltshire, mate.
They're on the Isle of Wight.
Like to see Wiltshire. I mean,
nowhere is safe. You can't even get from the south to the north. You can't even get from England up to Scotland without running through one of these areas. Action Bastard, welcome in. How are you?
6 years ago, Wiltshire was the safest place in the entire country, lowest crime rate in all of Britain, and now we learn we've got rape gangs here.
See,
not the safest anymore.
No pun intended. The white spots on that map, are they lower, or is there no gang activity there purely because they either have very low or no Muslim populations, or is there something else at play?
No, they're mostly white British population areas.
And as in, has there been better prevention?
No wonder I go up to Scotland and I feel safer. Very little wonder. Go up to Scotland and everything just feels safer, and you don't really have to deal with just the constant on-edge feeling like what I had to deal with when I was in London last. Because when I was in London, I genuinely did not feel safe. I was constantly having to be on my guard, constantly having to watch my back. It was stressful. It honestly was stressful and exhausting. I get up to Scotland, and I finally feel like I can let my hair down. I finally feel like I can relax and enjoy my holiday, in addition to feeling like I'd genuinely come home. Mainly because I had. Currently staving off a food coma, got treated to lunch by my wife's church friends. Oh, what sort of lunch did you have?
Campaigns, all that sort of thing, or is it purely a function of demography?
It's a function of demography. It's a function of because there are no colonies existing there. There's no reason for the trafficking networks to actually take the girls there to find eligible customers. But also, those are all provisionally unaffected because it could just be that there are areas across the country that haven't had anything reported yet. There haven't been any investigations. There've been no convictions.
Almost certainly, yeah.
They could have activity, rape gang activity in these parts. We don't know about it because the data wasn't collected. Burgers, fries, and a salad. Burger was thick as hell. Sounds tasty though.
And the inquiry, again, as you say, it's not ethnically or religiously partisan. It is also non-party political because it implicates both the Conservatives and Labour Party in this. Like, nobody's hands are clean. It points out Jess Phillips and Naz Shah, both not friends of this channel because of their behaviour. They've maintained public silence on the ethnic and religious patterns of the gangs while their constituencies suffered. Jess Phillips tried to block a local inquiry in Oldham. Naz Shah...
she didn't just try, she just kicked it back to the council in Oldham and said, do it yourself.
Exactly, when they said, we are incapable of doing so.
We would like you to do it because you're the government.
Exactly, and then she tried to depict herself as the real victim because Elon Musk criticised her for it.
Yeah, so I agree with you entirely that this is a problem that cuts across political parties. At the same time, these areas that we're looking at are overwhelmingly Labor-run councils. And the second thing I would say is that the left of politics, more so than the right, goes on and on about women's rights and equality and all that and kind of stuff, but then has this hypocrisy and blind spot here in a way which I don't think the right of politics does to the same extent.
They don't care. They don't care about your standards of hypocrisy. They don't even care about feminism and women's rights and all that business. Because in the end, those women who prattle on constantly about that sort of nonsense, they're just useful idiots. They're just tools to be used to extract and obtain political power. That's all they care about. It is a problem, been a problem, but the thing that's been aggravating me for the last decade is why the hell hasn't it been dealt with? It is like that meme that has been making the rounds as of late, once again, rather evergreen, of person, hand is on a switch, and you've got this streetcar runaway train that's just running over person after person after person that is tied to the rails. And it says you can stop this at any time, but you have to admit that you made a mistake. And for a lot of people in power, they are completely and totally unwilling to admit they made a mistake. Not that they're incapable. They are perfectly capable of doing it. They are unwilling to admit that they made a mistake. That the whole multicultural neoliberal experiment has failed. That you cannot import masses of the third world and expect to not become the third world. They are so scared of their legitimacy as a government being brought into question. Not only that, so many of them are scared of getting sued. On the more day-to-day level, that's one thing that drives them, is that they don't want to get sued. They don't want people bringing legal action. They are afraid that they will be exposed to some sort of civil or criminal liability if they admit they made a mistake. So if they just never admit it, cover it up, they can keep going business as usual. Trump over in Camp David right now prepping to take over Cuba. Probably not going to be very hard. Much like what happened with Venezuela, the whole thing is just ready to fall over at any moment. Which, let's face it, he needs a clear, decisive win after Iran has turned out to be not the clear, decisive win that he expected, even though he's trying to sell it to everybody as that. You look further into the terms of the deal that they supposedly have with Iran, and it just sort of looks like the Americans and the Iranians just sort of fought to a stalemate, nobody really has the capability to get a decisive win, so they're just like, all right, ceasefire, we're tired, let's go home. All the scandals, Trump just does what he wants, always just a matter of will rather than optics. Partly will, but optics, for a lot of normies at least, perception is still reality. Vanderwalkie, welcome in over on Kick. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Good time zones to you. Hope you're doing well.
Yes.
The hypocrisy, not to the same extent.
Yes, but I'm speaking in terms of like the actual concrete politicians in these respective parties, not the factions. Like, for example, we know that George Osborne told Ed Balls on his podcast that the Cameron government knew about the rape gangs. They had inherited all the notes that the Labour government under Blair had, and they didn't exploit it because they said it had insufficient political capital to attack their opposition with.
That's an absolute load of bollocks. They could have done something about it at any point. They could have done something about it at any point that they wanted to. They chose not to because they were afraid of being called a racist. They were afraid of being called a racist. Back when that sort of name calling actually held power over people. This is something they have known, as I said, since the Blair government. And it's been a problem even before that, going back to the early post-war periods. This has been something that's been going on for generations. And the cowards in Westminster and Whitehall and Number 10 have done nothing. Even now, I don't even know if they'll do anything about it. Exactly, they could have done something but didn't want to. Yeah, they could have ended this at any moment, but it would have required them to say, look, we made a mistake. We should not have brought these people in. They are clearly not compatible with the British way of life, so we're rounding them up and we're sending them all back. This whole multicultural thing just hasn't worked out. We tried it, and it didn't work, so we'll just have to figure out something else. But more than anything, what the people want to hear is not just, we made a mistake. What they really, really want is a sincere apology. I think that's the thing that not just the British public, but also the world just needs to hear from these people is, we are sorry. We fucked up. We fucked up really badly, and we're sorry. And whatever it takes to make this right, that is what we're going to do. I know we're hoping against hope here. I know that realistically we'll probably never hear that, and that it is foolishly naive to expect that from politicians and from bureaucrats. But that's what the people need to hear. That's what the people are demanding to hear. It's like we are still at that point where I think people can be talked down from the ledge. It's just admit you made a mistake, and it's time to start going in the other direction. Mere words are not enough. We do need to see action. But we're very quickly arriving to a point where words and any sort of action offered from the government is just not going to be enough. That's how late the hour is. Trump didn't do what should have been done in Iran, but maybe it'll work out. Should have made some glass. Yeah, unless you're willing to glass portions of the sandbox, everything is just half measures. Home Office counting on the votes. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if we end up having to reverse colonize the UK to clear out the parasites. May still come to that. God, no, we're way past sorry. Way past sorry. What we've seen is outrageous. I think there's still some people that is just like, look, please just admit at long last you fucked up. And making amends for that is going to involve a lot of people losing their jobs, losing the office that they were elected to. And yes, a lot of people need to go to prison for this. And that is the moderate solution. And if they don't get that, if the people do not get that, the sort of peaceful revolution, then you're just making violent revolution inevitable. An apology is probably the most people would get from that government. I don't even think we would get that from them at this point. Because again, they are so scared of their legitimacy being brought into question, which it already is. And they're scared of getting sued. I don't think they should go to prison. No, I don't think they should go to prison either. I think Osman is quite right about that. We're past all that. We are to the point where Nuremberg-style show trials need to happen, and a lot of people need to be sent to the gallows. What comes out of that should be a burning desire for justice, for some sort of retribution, maybe even some form of vengeance, much like we saw with the Israeli Nazi hunters throughout the 20th century, finding every last person that they could make an example out of from the Nazi government during the war. And what you saw with that, their home governments would try them. All the Israelis would just black bag them to Israel and conduct a trial there. The best they could hope for is a swift and somewhat painless death. That is a sort of spirit that needs to awaken within the British people, that for some only the hangman's noose will suffice. But I'm not seeing that on any large scale with our people thus far. I'm not seeing that necessary critical mass building up. I'm a Texan American, but I love the damn Brits. Trace our roots back to the Armstrong clan. Oh, very nice. You'd think after all this time that critical mass would have popped off already. I mean, you saw a bit of that in Belfast. Unfortunately, it just fizzled out. It had the potential to spread across the rest of the country, and it all just fizzled out over the course of a week, couple of weeks. And where is it now? I mean, that's just it. Protests are not enough. Waving flags and banners and shouting, it all just is impotent rage in the end. What got people's attention in Belfast was things like Turkish barbers and cell phone repair shops being firebombed, having petrol bombs thrown through the windows, having the storefronts smashed in, the local citizens' militia going house to house, looking for migrants that were known troublemakers, were in the country illegally, and just sending a message, you're not welcome here. That's time for you to go, mate. That started getting a lot of people's attention, that at least the people there in Northern Ireland, so they weren't fucking around anymore. We don't know what happened to that. We don't know if somebody got paid off. Don't know if some sort of backroom deal was cut. But all of that fizzled out. And it shouldn't have. It had the potential to ignite real revolution in the country. Don't know if it's never going to happen now. But at the very least, it's been unnecessarily delayed.
I mean, it's just
Which is crazy, because you'd think this is overwhelming political capital. Yeah. Sorry, the Labour Party have brought in a foreign constituency and they're letting them rape English girls. How could you not make political hay out of that?
Doesn't have political capital in Westminster.
Crazy, right?
Or to David Cameron, who's an arch-Arabist and kept giving speeches in Muslim conferences saying we need Muslims at the highest echelons of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, I mean, he was the one who literally turned the Conservative Party into a diversity party.
Yeah, he appointed Baroness Vorsi as the...
He put in the shortlists.
Yeah.
He transformed the Conservative Party into a Blairite party. Yep. So there we go.
They also named Rory
turned
Stewart
it into the Uniparty.
Alice Campbell's best friend. They say that Rory Stewart publicly described the issue as a small problem confined to the north of England and downplayed the national reality and thus showed the attitude of, at the very least, a large section of the party. And they do mention Andy Burnham, of course. Last week we covered Andy Burnham's complicity in burying the grooming gang's bodies in Greater Manchester's backyard. They note that when he commissioned the findings in 2017, he commissioned a limited independent review that concluded that authorities had failed to protect children from the gangs in Manchester, Oldham and Rochdale. I think it was 6 in 10 of the Greater Manchester combined authority areas have had rape gangs prosecuted in them. But, as I mentioned before, despite him being police and crime commissioner, no local authorities were held to account. No police officers were sacked or prosecuted. No social workers were prosecuted. And yet he continues to defend his record.
When we hear about this, and I would call it complicity from these sorts of politicians who heard of this stuff going on and didn't do anything, how much of this do you think is just cold, hard, cynical electoral maths where they go, I need to maintain my popularity with ethnic groups and Muslim groups? And how much of it do you think is the ideological commitment to this multicultural project, which they know if they were to take this on, the whole worldview of it comes shattering down? I know it's a bit of both, but where do you see the split?
I think it's both, and I think there's a third element, which is just cold indifference.
Classism.
Yeah, these people are beneath their moral concern.
I mean, if these politicians wanted to, they could have gaslit the fuck out of any Middle Eastern community in their constituency of, oh, no, we're not mass rounding up these people and arresting them and deporting them. We're not throwing them into prison for being in a rape gang and mass raping English girls. That's not going on. You're crazy. They could have kept a lid on all of it. Gaslit them, still got the votes. If you're clever enough, they may vote as a bloc, but they're not that clever. But no, it's indifference. It just really is indifference because so many of the victims are from lower classes, and the people in government just said to themselves, "Well, they're a bunch of slags and a bunch of chavs. They don't matter. they probably did something to deserve it anyway. That's a funny thing too, it doesn't take much to get started. It all circles back to willpower to keep it going. Yeah, and right now the willpower it doesn't exist. I guess things are really going to have to just genuinely get that much worse before people finally just fucking do something about it. But until enough of a critical mass can be built up. Ireland should be one, Scotland should be free. Don't know what Wales wants, England should be the one standing alone. I don't know if I agree with that. I think from geopolitical and world security standpoint, I think Scotland breaking away, especially given the nuclear subpins that are in Scotland, a breakaway from the United Kingdom would be viewed as a form of weakness and provocative by the Russians and by other forces. And I know that I'm not the only one who sees this. This is something that is talked about quite a bit in national security circles in the United States and with NATO allies. So just from a national and international security standpoint, Scotland being granted independence can never happen. But not only that, I believe that the UK can return to an age of empire. I don't believe that we have to be satisfied with all these countries just breaking apart and going their separate ways, because Lord knows we've seen what happened with Ireland. They've just swapped one form of the joke is they've swapped one form of slavery for another form of slavery. They swapped the yoke of English oppression for the yoke of oppression by Brussels. And look what's happened to them. No, I believe in the reunification and the rebirth of empire, because that's when shit worked. Anything less is just managed decline. Anything less just is another form of managed decline. Kalergi, welcome in. It's unreal, indeed it is. Why hasn't the British military in all of this? Were they just as complicit or even worse in on it like the cops? The British military and its various branches are kind of a shell of their former selves. It really says something when you have more admirals than you have ships in the fleet. And the whole DEI woke mind virus, I think, has just become a sort of fatal infection. White Brits dumb as fuck now, it seems. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call my people dumb, but certainly they have just become so passive, and it's unacceptable, and it doesn't need to be that way. That's the whole thing throughout this entire ordeal, is the underlying message: it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to live like this. There is a better way, and you can have that better way. But so much of it involves not caring if a bunch of brown people call you racist, and not caring if a bunch of women, a bunch of Karens, get their feelings hurt. That's going to be the cost, is that you're going to be called a racist, and you are going to hurt the feelings of white leftist women. If only I had the capital to revive Blackwater from 2007. Still exists to a certain extent, just in different forms. This is not called Blackwater.
Consideration is the same snobbish attitude you get from Westminster outlets and people in political parties, where they see immigration or demographics or migrant crime as like a gauche topic that's beneath them. It's the Fraser Nelson mindset.
Yeah, it's the it's the problem of the white working classes, who are themselves interpolated as being scummy Tommy Robinson supporters.
The final stumbling block to multiculturalism.
But not just that. That's kind of like an ideological perspective. There's a kind of personal revulsion.
But no
I
less
don't
true.
want to be associated with those people. I don't feel represented by those people because what are they drinking their beer and singing football hooligan chants and whatnot? I'm not like them.
Yeah, and they're also viewed as an obstacle to the upper classes just being able to govern unopposed and completely get their way and replace the white working classes with a brown foreigner underclass that they view as more compliant, that they view as somehow more manageable, even though they're not. The white working class is actually a lot more easily manageable because they're your own people and there's greater social cohesion. And where you have greater social cohesion, it's easier to manage. But they don't get that. They don't see that. All they see is an obstacle to be bred out of existence, to be genocided out of existence, and replaced with a brown underclass that won't raise any objections to anything, will just vote the way they're told, until such time that they have created a massive brown golem that will swallow them whole and replace them. It has happened plenty of times before in the past. One need only look to ancient Rome, where it happened, to where the elites and the powerful started to view the native population with contempt. And so they said, yeah, you know what, we're going to bring in foreigners, and we'll make them citizens, and we'll have them vote for us, because the rest of you are getting a bit too uppity for our taste. You're asking too many uncomfortable questions. You're bringing our own legitimacy into question too much. We've just decided we don't like you anymore and we want you replaced. And so that's what they did. And then the underclass realized, wait a minute, there's more of us than these elites that brought us in. We never really liked them. They're not us. They're not the same race as us. They're not the same religion as us. We can just vote our own people in now. We don't need them. So we'll just vote our own people in, and we'll take over and we'll run things from now on. And then the whole thing crashed because they were at the time bringing in third world savages that didn't know how anything worked. And so the whole thing eventually collapsed under itself, just like that movie Elysium, but a very dumb version of it. Yeah, it is an evil form of almost retardation with this veneer of arrogance and hubris of people thinking they're so smart, and really they are not the smartest people in the room. Governance by midwits. Devil in Red, welcome in. One thing many UK locals don't know about us Muslims are using smuggling rings in the USA to sneak in guns to the UK. One was caught in Florida. That was after who knows how many got hundreds of guns smuggled. That's just one state out of 50. No telling how many are still active. Yeah, no telling. And it just goes to show you, no matter where you go in the world, gun control laws, they don't work. If a criminal wants to get their hands on a gun or on some kind of weapon, they're going to do exactly that. So you might as well have a well-armed population that knows how to defend itself, that knows its way around a gun. But yeah, gun smuggling would not surprise me in the least. And don't be surprised if gun-grabbing leftists and Democrats in the US try to use something like that to push even more gun control in the US. I mean, owning a gun in the United Kingdom, nigh on impossible, even if it's strictly for hunting purposes. Incredibly hard to get your hands on, even just a simple hunting rifle. But don't be surprised if leftists and Democrat politicians in America try to use that as yet another reason to push for gun control in the US. But they definitely do that. Leftists hate guns. Yes, they do. They cannot be allowed to get back into power because that's exactly one of the things they're going to push for. One of many things they will expend untold levels of political capital on. And the pro-Second Amendment lobby, I don't think it's as strong as it used to be. The whole thing in New York with the National Rifle Association, I think that was a pretty critical blow. And a lot of them are still recovering from that. They're already using it to control guns. They label violent leftists as far right and say, take the guns away. Yeah, for them, words are just a means to deceive humans.
I'm an urbane, refined socialite who, I mean, Rory Stewart, that was the perfect description. Oh, it's a small problem confined to some northern areas. It's like, well, I'm sure if you're a 13-year-old girl who comes from a broken home, who's being trafficked and molested and raped.
Yeah, they don't view it as a small problem.
It doesn't actually feel like that small a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a big problem for them.
It's not that small a problem. It's actually the worst thing that could possibly be happening to you. And Rory Stewart was like, yeah, but you are working class white English. So
yeah. But this is also the left, like that they care about the oppressed minority, which may be a very small percentage of the population all the time. They'll care about the oppressed, trans rights, for example.
Well, they'll say they do.
Yeah, they'll say they do.
They're all just useful idiots.
They will pick and choose which particular minorities they invest their emotional energy into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's disproportionately the ones that are perpetrators of such crimes. The inquiry has a succinct summary of the patterns that they found across witness testimonies. They heard harrowing testimony from survivors and their families. The method used to groom children typically followed the same process. Girls as young as 11 were initially befriended by a young Muslim man who then treated the child like an adult and would start providing them with alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes. After a few months, the girls would then be collected from school gates, care homes, and streets in taxis. They were taken to houses, flats, restaurants, and hotels where they were raped repeatedly by groups of men, tortured, filmed for blackmail, and were told they were white trash or kuffar who merited punishment. Many become pregnant while still children. Some miscarried under trauma. Others endured coerced abortions. Some gave birth to the children who were later confiscated by the state. Survivors described daily rapes, red rooms.
There's a lot there to unpack. Bad enough, so many of these girls get kidnapped and raped by some disgusting foreigner, but then having to endure the additional trauma of a miscarriage, an abortion, because you got pregnant from that whole ordeal. A child of rape conceived, only to lose that child through a miscarriage, through abortion, both of which, regardless of how the child is conceived, incredibly traumatic for the woman who is carrying that child. So at this point, we are just stacking trauma upon trauma. I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but it is trauma maxing. I know longer than a decade. I first heard about this back in 2014. Yeah, so many people have known that this has been going on for a long time. It's just, this is the first time it has really been confirmed publicly in a government report. Again, a decade of this and nothing was done. More than a decade, several decades. NIA has been compromised for 20 years now. Yeah, I can believe that. There were some measures that people expected the NRA to stand strong on, and they capitulated. Whereas rival organizations like Gun Owners of America stood strong and said, "Yeah, no, we're not cooks like those people over at the NRA. This is wrong, and we're going to fight this." So yeah, don't support the National Rifle Association. They've been compromised. Support actual pro Second Amendment organizations that believe in what they stand for.
Of extreme torture, trafficking between cities, and institutional disbelief that compounded their sufferings. Some girls were even trafficked to the Middle East, where they would endure Islamic marriage, and some have never been recovered from there. So
they're either still in some sort of slavery situation, or they've been killed. They were murdered. They were shuffled away and disappeared. That's the fate that awaits white girls who get involved with these sorts of people.
Some people have proposed there needs to be an international effort to sort of launch expeditions to recover our girls.
So there are currently English
Yes.
girls as slaves in Pakistan at the moment.
Yes.
And
there do need to be expeditions. I don't see anyone offering up to do these sorts of expeditions. Do you, chat? I haven't heard of anything. Which is not to say they don't probably exist, but God knows they need more press coverage than what they're getting. The rot with all of this truly runs deep. As the video title says, it is so much worse than you can possibly imagine.
again, that was something that was never uncovered before this inquiry. So for all of the people that said, what's the
Yeah.
point of a non-statutory inquiry?
Rumored, but
Well,
never confirmed.
It didn't take forever, and it's uncovered all sorts of new avenues of exploration for a willing government to actually explore.
I mean, any inquiry that is not bounded by concerns of political correctness is a valuable thing
Yes.
in and of itself.
Yeah. But can I add a third argument to that? And I spoke about this on Patrick Christie's show last night. You know, this government led inquiry is not independent if they're the ones who pick the chair and they're the ones who set the parameters of the inquiry. So let's cut this nonsense that this will be a hands-off independent inquiry. It's not by the very nature of how it was set up. But the other thing is, and again, if something that it's become very clear in the last few weeks is in the response to Novak, in the response to Belfast, you have seen the establishment double down and try and cover their own ass in order to try and protect this whole multicultural narrative, which is their religion. So I've got absolute...
That is their religion. They are true believers, and they're not going to let that go without a very nasty, drawn-out fight. Again, they can stop this whenever they like, but it means completely capitulating and just renouncing everything they believe and admitting that they made a mistake. And the people in power in government right now, they are completely unwilling to do that.
No faith that an inquiry, which ultimately the end goal would be, or the end outcome of it would be, if it is sincere, is a rejection of that ideology. There's no way that you could see it as a credible investigation.
Yeah,
no way.
Any rejection of that sort of ideology, I don't think we're going to see a complete and total rejection of that in our lifetimes. This is something that's going to take at least a couple of generations before people finally openly admit, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We don't believe that anymore. We're going back to the old ways. That's just going by the law of averages, going by a broader macro view of human history. That sort of fundamental change, it can be brought about. It takes violent revolution to do that if you want it overnight. Peaceful revolution, 2 or 3 generations. At least. Another crusade can't start soon enough. A sentiment that's said a lot, but damn if it ain't true. Now, we've needed another crusade for quite some time. And honestly, it just needs to be the last crusade. Because all of the previous crusades in human history, they've all just looked like half measures in comparison. We have the capability and the technology to make sure it is the last crusade, but it takes the will to make that happen.
The culprits are never going to profess to their own guilt.
Of course they're not.
So we just can't.
Of course they're not.
Do it.
No.
And one of the things they never examine.
They
is,
don't
of
think
course,
they're the
role of
bad
Islam,
guy.
And there is a weighty section in this paper going into the theological, the sociological reasons why the gangs use Islam as a binding agent to find new customers, to keep a code of silence, but also why they use it to justify the abuse of white non-Muslim British girls. And I'll just read a small section. The gang members' justification for their crimes can be found in the Islamic principles of loyalty and disavowal, known as al-wala wal-bara, or there's also the concept of asabaya, which is clannish in-group solidarity.
And also the use of taqiyya to lie and deceive in the name of jihad. I mean, honestly, he says words like that, and you half expect pieces of furniture to start levitating in your house. Supreme Herald, welcome in. Thank you for the watch streak.
It demands enmity towards non-Muslims, the superiority of men over women, forced marriage combined with the absence of any fixed minimum age of consent, the perception of female sexuality as inherently dangerous, a fitna, a temptation to be resisted, a system of sex slavery that authorizes sexual relations with non-Muslim captives, bondwomen, and
they always, it just turns into, it's structurally victim blaming. It's like, it's the woman's fault for tempting me. Couldn't help myself. Couldn't keep it in my pants. It's the woman's fault. It's like, no, you're a grown-ass man. Keep it in your fucking trousers, man.
Justly sanctioned social hierarchy that subjugates conquered non-Muslims. These elements, filtered through the clannish immigrant subcultures of Pakistan and Somalia, provided religious justification that enabled the systematic rape and even slaughter of white British girls. And there were multiple survivors that said blonde women are treated as witches in Pakistan, so we had to get extra maltreatment. We had to kiss the feet of our Muslim abusers. We were told if we were lined up in a care home that we had to stare at the floor because we locked eyes with one of them. That was a sign in the Quran that if a woman locks eyes with a man, it means that she is inviting him to have sex with her. These are children.
This is a very complicated question, but we are talking not just about Muslim men, predominantly Pakistani Muslim.
You hear all of this, and it's like people in power think, oh yeah, we can mass import these people and there won't be any problems. You and I hear that, and we're like, these people are fundamentally incompatible with our way of life. We cannot let these people in. This is mental. It's beyond mental. This is third world barbarism that needed to be extinguished before the Bronze Age. Yeah, trouble is, so many of these people in these cultures, they never got out of the Bronze Age. They're still stuck in a Bronze Age mentality. And it's going to take Bronze Age tactics to bring them to heel.
Men, how much of this sort of mentality is derived from the culture of Pakistan and how much is derived from the Islamic element? And I know that they are intertwined.
Well,
Yeah, they're so intertwined that it really doesn't, the question doesn't even matter. They're incompatible, they don't belong here, and they all have to go back. And I don't care if you ship them all off on cargo planes, but if you just dump them into the English Channel and just say, right, start swimming, just get them the fuck out.
That's the point, actually, I think. I'm not sure they're extricable.
Right.
I'm not sure you could remove
No,
the current culture of Pakistan from the Islamic influence.
Well, maybe frame it the other way. Why are they predominantly coming from this Pakistani Muslim culture and not from other Muslim countries?
That's just the demographic realities of our post-imperial immigration policy.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
In the last 10 or 15 years, and even Louise Casey has pointed this out, you've had refugees from, there's just an Afghan grooming gang charged in Norwich a couple of weeks ago. You've got them now joining the existing established rape gangs.
Wasn't one in Northern Ireland Afghan as well?
I'm not sure.
I can't
but there's a Somalian one in Bristol.
Yeah.
There are members from Iraq. There are Kurds in this. And it's because Islam acts as a binding agent. And there are verses in the Quran and the Hadith that says essentially the bond of brotherhood between.
He's so far behind even asking the question. The kids these young girls had via rape have also been raped. Getting them out at this point is like us being angels of God. Yeah, indeed. Anything would be better than that life. Saudi prince told the West in English this would happen back in 2017, 2018. He said they kill the ones doing this crap in their country. Shows they don't want to go to other Muslim countries because they would be killed. Yeah, they know what would happen to them. And they see that the UK tolerates this sort of thing. And so they go over there and they engage in that sort of behavior. Because for them, it's like Donald Rumsfeld said so long ago, with these people, weakness is provocative, and they view that sort of tolerance in England and in the West as a form of weakness. And that weakness is provocative to them. They are daring us to strike back.
Between believers does not liquidate the blood bond between brothers. And so what Islam did is it mapped almost ideologically onto the clan structure of 7th century Arabia. And it just so happens that in
Surprise.
and it just so happens that in
A shocker,
countries in the
really.
Indian subcontinent where you have a really high level of clannishness of cousin marriage, that just codifies that clan structure. Same with Somalia. And
So much cousin marriage that you've got an inbreeding problem with a lot of these people. Another uncomfortable reality nobody wants to talk about, and why so many Pakistanis are just an absolute drain on the British welfare state, because, surprise, surprise, there's so much DNA relations between husbands and wives coming from Pakistan that the children have got birth defects, visible birth defects from so much inbreeding. And that's just what you can see. The rest is the stuff that's not so obvious, but eventually bears itself out in everyday life. So many of these people just are absolutely functionally retarded. They have room temperature IQs, and they're not capable of raising that IQ because they are just that fucking inbred. This is why cousin marriage stopped being a thing in the West a long time ago. That's why the royal families stopped marrying each other's cousins and eventually started having royals marry commoners, because if they kept marrying each other's cousins, then every few generations they would give birth to an heir that was an absolute stark raving lunatic. It was why, I believe it was Nikolai, the son of Tsar Nicholas II, suffered from severe hemophilia. Well, that was a product of cousin marriage. It was believed that King George, at the time of the American Revolution, he himself was the product of cousin marriage, and he was reputed to be mad. It was no wonder that the American colonists couldn't come to some sort of understanding with the monarchy in Britain. Hard to do that when the monarch sitting on the throne is insane. Over 70% of Pakistanis are born from first cousin parents. Yeah. You get further down the line, second, third, fourth, fifth cousins, a couple of times removed, it's not so much of a problem, at least from a genetic standpoint. The moral implications, modern sensibility implications, it's still icky, to say the least. But yeah, first cousins constantly marrying each other, you're going to produce children with birth defects. And the ones that don't have visible birth defects are going to be stark raving lunatics. Even with all that, politicians are like, yeah, this is who we can have as a farmed voting bloc. They're counting on that sort of stupidity and mental retardation on a collective level, making them docile enough that they'll vote the way they want them to. It'll work for the time until it doesn't. And that's the thing with these people. They will not be contained because so many of them have that just savage animal instinct that will not be tamed.
So the Venn diagram is basically a circle. Right. You just can't have these people here, honestly. And some of the statements from
That's
witnesses
the long and the short of
corroborate
it.
this, and they're just horrendous. So there's one woman euphemized as Taylor. Some of the names are euphemism to protect their identity. Before they raped me, they would chant Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Translation: in the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. So they would see this as a sort of religious ritual.
Well, it's the sort of thing they say in the mosque.
Yeah.
Literally, when they go into the mosque, that's what they say, right?
Yeah. Some girls were forcibly converted to Islam and dragged to mosques where they would receive sermons where the imams would say white girls deserve to do this because they're basically sexually advanced. I mean, Taj Hargay, who's the cleric at the Oxford Islamic congregation, has been blowing the whistle on this for about 13 years to his absolute credit. Jen said, they have no compassion for the young girls that are out on the streets and they see us as slags, white trash. English pig dogs came up a lot because Muslims don't like pigs and dogs. So they hate dogs, hate pigs, and they put women on the same level. One survivor said,
yeah, we can have debates about, somebody doesn't like bacon, that's a red flag, which, let's be real, somebody doesn't like bacon, that is a bit of a red flag, isn't it? But yeah, as someone who has had dogs as pets, and, fancy myself more a dog person than a cat person, though I do like cats. Are people who have an unreasoning hatred of dogs, or even some sort of unreasoning fear of dogs, that's a red flag for me. You don't like dogs, there's something wrong with you. Because, all of the sort of appeals to emotion aside of, the dogs, and most of them are friendly and cute and cuddly animals, and etc., etc. Dogs are one of the few species in the animal kingdom that really know how to love unconditionally, that don't really keep much of a memory of grudges or trauma or anything like that, just because they don't have that sort of long-term memory capability. So just by their very nature, they tend to be loyal and love their masters unconditionally. And in a way, I view that as sort of symbolic of Christ's unconditional love for us. I see the love and the mercy of Jesus reflected in the nature of most dogs. So you have some sort of issue on a fundamental cultural, racial, religious level with dogs. You probably take issue with core tenets of my faith. That's a red flag for me. That's a big red flag for me, mate. And that's a sign you don't belong here. And if you remain here, you're going to have a bad time. And you need to go back. Dogs sense evil. It's no wonder why they don't like dogs. Yeah. Dogs have got a pretty good sixth sense of who's good people and who's bad people. I'm fortunate that most of the time, dogs tend to warm up to me. But yeah, they sense a lot of hostility in people like that. Our dog in my home, he's got a pretty good sixth sense of who's going to be trouble and who's going to be good people. And yeah, if my dog doesn't like you, and our dog's really friendly with a lot of people, but if he doesn't like you, if he shows hostility to you, yeah, you probably need to leave my house. You probably need to leave my house. I don't need any more logic or reasoned arguments beyond that. That's sort of my way of saying, no, I will not elaborate. You need to leave. Rarely met a dog I can't make friends with. It's the nature of dogs. Most dogs are incredibly friendly. Most dogs are incredibly friendly creatures. And as I said, they embody Christ's unconditional love for us. You need evidence Jesus is real? Go find a dog. God would not have made dogs like that without good reason. Another sign that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, and that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And I don't care what sort of high-minded intellectual arguments there are about whether certain animals go to heaven or not. I believe heaven is full of lots of dogs. We made dogs from wolves because we're made in the image of God, and God is good and promotes good. Exactly right, Harold. That's exactly it. Well said.
They used to tell her things about the good angel and the bad angel, and that I've been possessed, and they've got to punish me to get the badness out of me. That's why they have to rape me and do all this stuff to me to get the badness out of me. So it's essentially like a jinn exorcism for English children.
What?
That's bloke on the right.
This is just an excuse to be able to do the terrible things they're doing.
Yeah, of course.
It's a pretense to behave like monsters.
Blamed jinns before to exculpate themselves from responsibility. But it's absolutely the case that they either derive a justification from the scripture, or they use the scripture as window dressing.
Yeah.
So, from Victoria, who's the mother of one of the victims, she discovered Muslim clothing and a Quran and a prayer mat hidden under her daughter's bed. Her daughter began quoting the Quran and praying 5 times a day, and this sudden change in beliefs coincided with a secret relationship with an Algerian Muslim student. After meeting the man, she repeatedly attempted suicide. During one hospital stay, the police removed her daughter from her and transported her to the address of her abuser's brother. There, her daughter was subjected to mental and physical abuse, including strangulation, death threats, rape, and financial exploitation. Money was funneled.
No wonder she wanted to end her life. With that sort of treatment, who could blame her for wanting to think that ending her life is the only way out? But it is not the only way out. A dog is a good friend, so I've heard the best of dogs are great tools, be it for herding or hunting. Rural farmers here, I'll tell you, so absolutely. Oftentimes, a farmer's best friend is his dog.
Through her abuser's brother's bank account, and then the man and his family racially abused her, calling her a white slag, and pressured her to drop all complaints, file to the police, and then marry their son. Apparently, Prevent also knew of her abuser, but was slow to act. So the police are and social services are proactively handing the girls over to their rapists. I mean, there was one case in Bradford where a 13-year-old girl had her social worker sign the paperwork to have her adopted by her rapist parents, and then attend the traditional Islamic marriage that she was married off to her abuser in. Like,
It's
one of the things I
madness.
hate about this is there's a kind of attitude that a woman can be fallen, right? And this attitude pervades much of the third world. And this is why they call them slags and white trash and kafar and all this sort of thing, where if a woman has had her dignity violated, this is essentially a kind of unrecoverable position, and therefore you are essentially permitted to do whatever you like to this woman because she is an undignified woman. She doesn't have the protection of the reputation of a family. She doesn't have her own personal innocence or sanctity intact.
she can't confer any benefits on the family by being associated with it.
Sure, but what that means is, well, once this dignity has been stripped from the woman, then she's fair game. And you saw this in the Sheffield event where the girl was raped, picked up again and raped, and then picked up again and raped a third time on the same day in this community. And
It's a mentality that is completely alien to Westerners. We can never and will never understand that. And that's a good thing, because we at least treat our women with much more dignity than that, with much more respect than that. Even though to hear some women talk, you would think that the exact opposite is true. Yes, this is a child that we are talking about. It is. Well, I'm trying to think who it was. I believe he was a vice president at one point in America by the name of Hubert Humphrey. And I'm very oversimplifying what he said. It was like, you can tell a lot about a society by the way it treats its children and by the way it treats the elderly. This is how the British state treats its children. It really says a lot, and none of it is good.
And that's only possible if you think, okay, well, if everyone around has the attitude that, well, once this like veil of innocence or sanctity has been stripped away from the woman, then she is just community property, right? That's only possible with that kind of attitude. And that
Basically,
is an
justified
that
turning it
pervades
into a
almost
town
the entire
bicycle.
Third world. Like, this is why the women are some of the most conservative people you'll ever meet, because they understand that actually protecting their own sanctity is protecting themselves physically.
What infuriates me is that you will have leftists who will point to a few friendly Muslims that they know who have been westernized, and that becomes your argument against that being a cultural problem amongst groups of Muslim people in aggregate. And it doesn't hold up.
They think that the rare little exceptions they can point out somehow disprove the rule. And it's a logical fallacy. And I think on some level they know it's a logical fallacy. But again, this involves admitting that they are wrong about a great many things, and they simply cannot bring themselves to do that.
To scrutiny. Again, it doesn't hold up to any sense of logic, but
No,
it is a very,
there
very
is no logic.
convenient way to stop having these uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
And that's all they want to do. The longer these conversations go on, the worse it gets for the left. And that's why we have to keep these conversations going. We cannot allow it to be suppressed by the media or by anyone else. We have to keep the pressure on. If nothing else, keep that pressure on, keep talking about it, keep it in the front of the public consciousness, because the longer that happens, the more it chips away at the legitimacy of the British state and of the whole leftist experiment. The leftist experiment of multiculturalism and mass immigration can only succeed in a vacuum. So much of it is built on you not noticing things and not talking about things, and on you being compliant with orders of suppression and intimidation tactics to keep you silent. If you refuse to be intimidated by any of that, and if you keep talking about it in defiance of them, slowly it all starts to fall apart. And that is what we are seeing. Despite the fact that we are long past any sort of peaceful revolution, we're long past that point. Talking about it still helps. That said, we've got to do more than just talk about it. Something has got to be done.
Exactly.
And despite all this, the inquiry notes that the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 and Sentencing Council guidelines explicitly permit, in cases of demonstrated hostility, they require an uplift in the imposed sentence where the offence is aggravated by racial and religious hostility. As you've mentioned before, they couldn't find one case where the sentences were increased based on racial and religious aggravation for a rape gang charge.
I've looked.
If anything,
I've
they
just
were
never
lessened.
seen any example of a non-white person being convicted of a crime against a white person and it also being a hate crime.
And I imagine there is several instances where there have been mitigating factors. For example, the person may have come from a foreign culture. They didn't understand our ways. That is a mitigating factor. Oh, poor them. They were, abused, or they were a minority in their country of origin.
I
That's a
don't
mitigating factor.
care.
I imagine there's plenty that go the other way.
Yeah. We have limitless compassion for the people that would destroy the lives of our children. So in terms of the course of action,
Mercifully, the compassion is running out now, to the point where we hear these sorts of things, and the collective response is, I don't really care, Margaret.
the inquiry makes a series of recommendations. They say, we intend to release the full witness testimonies, gather additional survivor accounts, identifies those responsible in Parliament for ignoring this, who have been approached by survivors before and been inactive, and begin civil and private legal actions to ensure maximum accountability. And that's what the proceeds of the inquiry that haven't been spent yet will probably be spent on pursuing private prosecutions. They recommend the Sentencing Council must be required by statute to revise guidelines so that group-based child sexual exploitation carries a starting point of life imprisonment with a minimum tariff of 50 years for ringleaders and 25 for participants. Rupert Lowe obviously wants to give them the death penalty. So do I. There is an entire section of deportations, which is...
Unfortunately, the way the law is set up in the UK, they don't have a death penalty anymore. That needs to change. And I believe Rupert Lowe has said, if Restore gets into power, they're going to bring back the death penalty. That alone is reason enough for me to support Restore Britain. I encourage everyone in the UK and outside of the UK, support Restore Britain. Whatever you can give in terms of support, whatever is legally permissible, do it. Even if it's just retweeting, sharing their public messages on social media, do it. Hope so. Reality is often disappointing. The way things are structured over there, they don't have quite as many hurdles compared to what you would find with an American form of government. If they get enough seats in Parliament, and if they get the proper legislation together, they can enact sweeping reforms, and they can do so in one fell swoop. And there would not be very much that the civil service or anyone else could do to stop them. I'll try to repost every pro-Restore thing I see. Thank you. Thank you, Alec. Yeah, even something like that, it helps. Every little bit helps. Everyone has a part to play, and everyone needs to do their bit.
that every foreign criminal, foreign national convicted must at the very least be deported. Any British citizen convicted of these offences holds dual nationality, must lose their citizenship upon conviction and also be deported.
Now, I can ask a question on the deportation issue, because this is something I was struggling with last night when I was thinking about it. I agree with you. I think, these people should be put to death.
Yeah.
Let's say you cannot get that the death penalty supported in the country. So your options are keeping them here in jail or deporting them. How do you feel about the fact that you would deport them and then they potentially escape the justice that is owed to them by being put in a very, very uncomfortable, jail cell for the rest of their lives?
Well, I mean, that's a real issue, because in their countries, maybe what they've done isn't really seem to be a crime, right? So, okay, we send them back to Pakistan or wherever. Why do they care?
Yeah.
They're not going to punish them. And so that's a genuine question.
We shouldn't be paying for them for the rest of their lives.
I know, but they should be punished is the alternative argument. And that's something I really struggle with.
And I'm actually very sympathetic to this, which is why I'm
So am
part
I.
of the 7% of this country who wants to bring back floggings.
I mean, it's one thing that they would understand. It is the sort of thing that they would understand. This is something that is still done in places like Singapore. Singapore is, well, it's actually a British Commonwealth state, a member of the Commonwealth. Very diverse society, incredibly diverse society. Majority Han Chinese, but you've also got other minority factions in there, to the point where there is no sort of monocultural bloc. And people like Lee Kuan Yew realized almost from the jump, that a lot of the trappings of Western democratic society would not work. That setting an example for everyone else oftentimes is the way to go, which is why they still have canings in Singapore, which is why you get caught with any kind of drug, even marijuana, at the minimum you're facing prison time. possibly even execution. People caught with hard drugs on them, they face execution. They are not fucking around over there. They have killed people for less. But you look at what, and also the idea of a jury trial doesn't exist over in Singapore. You get caught on the wrong side of the Singaporean legal system, your fate will be decided by a judge, maybe a tribunal of judges. Sentences are harsh and are handed out swiftly. That's what they have to do over there. What they've achieved as a consequence of that is a very clean, very orderly society. But even they realize the things that you do in a modern Western country only works if you have a certain demographic majority. A more diverse society means you have to go more authoritarian, self-sustaining remote island prisons. But enough about Australia. It's Commonwealth of Nations, it's 56 members, yes. Singapore being one of them. As a kid, I wanted death sentence for marijuana users and lifetime torture sentences for anything harder. You'd probably be right at home in some place like Singapore. Swifter the better, yes. But at this point, just simply getting these people responsible for these rape gangs, getting them out of the UK, shipping them back wherever they came from, that is the moderate solution. And it is the question of, it seems like they're getting off easy. They'll be sent back someplace where that's not viewed as a crime. I agree. In an ideal world, they would face just summary execution, and we call it a day, and they really should. But I also understand the sentiment of, at some point, you just need to get them out of there, and they can be somebody else's problem. So compelling arguments both ways. Yes, execute them, be done with it, but if need be, just get them out of there, and they can be somebody else's problem. Brunei and Malaysia are also Commonwealth members. That makes 3 in Southeast Asia. Yeah, there's still a lot of Commonwealth nations all across the globe. And when you see them all on the map, you start to understand the old phrase of, oh yeah, so that's why they said the sun never sets on the British Empire. Willing to invest in castration before exportation. There's a thought. Chemical castration. It's okay, once we get them all back into the sandbox, we can just lay down some glass. There's a thought.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
It's been polled.
I'd agree.
More than half people want to bring back the death penalty, but only 7% want to bring back floggings, and I'm one of them.
Where's heads on spikes on Tower Bridge? Where are we at with that one?
Well, I guess that'll be rolled into floggings, but yeah. So no, I am genuinely concerned about this because a lot of people will just get rid of them. It's like, yeah, but then they get nice long lives comfortably in Pakistan, wherever where they get to be upstanding members of their community, and I hate it.
And if my daughter was gang raped, and then we said, well, you know what, I don't want to pay for them in jail for the rest. I go, you know what, I
don't either. But
pay the money because these people deserve the justice that should come to them.
I think the most sensible settlement, and I think the public appetite would be there for this, is the death penalty for the perpetrators. And then, as it says here, where a perpetrator has family members in Britain who have supported, harboured, or failed to report the offending, which is the Pakistani community writ large, the entire immediate family must also face deportation proceedings themselves. Yep. Now, some of these people will have been born in Britain.
Good.
Don't care, mate. I don't care. I really don't give a shit. Get rid of them. I'm with Carl here. I'm with Sagan. Just fucking get rid of them. Denaturalize them. I mean, we've already seen the British state denaturalized a white British man simply because he's married to a Russian national and living over in Russia too. So they're perfectly willing to do it to white Britons. They've opened the door to this. They've set the precedent. Turnabout is fair play. So if we can do it to white Britons, we can certainly do it to Pakistanis. I'm in favor of beating with staves and so on being brought back if you have definitely committed a crime. Isn't enough a death sentence, you should still be punished rather than just be allowed to live in a box and eat, drink, have a toilet and a bed for free. Yeah, no, bring back public floggings. Especially when you're dealing with Middle Easterners, Africans, people coming from the third world, that sort of thing they understand. And it sends a message to them, we're not fucking around here.
Piece of paperwork given can be taken away. I do think this is the grounds now for the amount of evidence we have for just the expulsion of Pakistanis from Britain.
Bring back the
Just can't have
stocks.
this anymore. Like it's just not worth it. Just not worth it. They make a series of other recommendations, including like getting rid of the Equality Act, getting rid of the Race Relations Act, because they've hermetically sealed these crimes. They've imposed the public sector.
We've got to get rid of all of that. We've got to get rid of a lot of that in America too. Like one thing that I see as a huge problem to and a huge obstacle to the re-enfranchisement of especially white men in America is the legal concept of disparate impact, where it doesn't matter how much you try to be equal opportunity, quote unquote. If the results aren't satisfactory to the government, people can still go after you, which is why you get things like the subprime housing crisis in the 2000s. You had a lot of people in minority communities that had no business taking out any type of mortgage or any type of loan. But because of disparate impact, Community Reinvestment Act, that sort of thing, a lot of loans got written to a lot of people that had no business taking them out. And so much of that was born from disparate impact. Got to get rid of that. It's why there are still racial, ethnic, gender quotas that remain unspoken, but they do exist in the corporate world. And it's one of the things that can deal a critical blow, even a fatal blow to DEI. Got to get rid of that stuff.
On the state, which they then use as an excuse to say we can look the other way. They said to pass a Childhood Sexual Exploitation Act, which expunges the convictions for children who were convicted of crimes who were being groomed by gangs at the time, because unfortunately there are plenty of women that have had that. They've proposed to automatically remove the parental rights from convicted rapists, in sort of Sammy Woodhouse's case, ban Sharia marriages, and establish a multi-agency coordination on child sexual exploitation, a uniform framework across police forces, so we have a standard to ensure that one police force can't slack on their duties and ensure that more of these happen again.
These are all very, very sensible recommendations, to the extent that I can't see really how any sensible person could disagree with them. And I put this again last night on the show. I put it to the lefty on the panel who was saying, well, you know what, this is this didn't have, statutory authority, this report, the methodology was questionable, yada, yada, yada. We need to have an independent inquiry. We need to have due process followed. And I said, look,
okay, Sir Humphrey, whatever.
It's going to take years, by which time the people who actually need to be held to account will be off somewhere else and the world will have moved on. The other
Probably
thing
dead
is
and
as
gone.
well, just look at the recommendations, judge them on their merits, and actually say, well, why shouldn't we implement those immediately? But instead the deflection was, well, Rupert Lowe has a political agenda. So that is what you are going to get coming up. And you need to push back and say really clearly, forget the politics around this. Look at each of those individual policies, and they are all very responsible. We cannot wait 3 or 4 years to stuff around when really this stuff still goes on now and action needs to be taken now.
The clearest examples of this are the two...
They're banking on being able to use delay and stall tactics to just tire out the opposition and make it go away. That's what they're banking on. No more stall tactics. And we're keeping it front of mind. DEI made those quotas public. They're trying to hide it by going mask off, but it's not working. No, it's not. We know it's there now. And we've got to get rid of it. Put them in multi-generational lifetime reintroduction through labor camps. Have them produce cheap junk we can sell abroad like China once they've paid off what they cost. There's a thought.
Recommendations to have mandatory gathering of nationality and ethnicity data of all perpetrators of child sexual abuse and reporting on it. It's insane we don't. But the other one is mandatory safeguarding requirements for the NHS, social workers, police. When there are signs of child sexual exploitation, for example, some of these girls were taken in with multiple STDs, pregnancies. They were like 12. And the NHS just gave them a pat them on the back and told them to go on their way.
Well, a lot of the time they give them birth control.
Or they
give them birth control. So it's a 12-year-old girl. What are you doing?
The fact there isn't a statutory obligation there that public sector officials can fall afoul of is insane. And that should be the case. So I just want to finish with a couple of seconds on the reaction. So Rupert Lowe has made this promise, and he's just said what happens next. He's going to use parliamentary privilege to name perpetrators and their enablers in the chamber who they don't think there is a realistic prospect of securing private prosecutions for, whereas other names will be withheld in order to secure those private prosecutions based on the amount of evidence in this report, including the appendix that just lists all the agencies with some redacted names that have failed. But as you said, Will, there are some people that are engaging in motivated reasoning and ignoring this. So, for example, I want to, as Restore Britain pointed out, Daily Mail dedicated over the weekend 2 front pages to attacking Restore Britain activists. 19-year-old guy, Angloid, calling him a neo-Nazi based on fabricated quotes by Stand Up to Racism. Complete silence on the rape gangs. One of the only people that has covered it are yourself and Patrick Christis last night. All the other press.
Yeah, no, to their credit, the Daily Express covered it as well.
Daily Express did as well?
Yep.
Excellent.
To their credit.
And because of the story that I opened with, the reopening of other cases, a bunch of other respectable mainstream TV news stations were covering it to say that this is a
Did you just call Ed Balls respectable?
respectable and air quotes.
Yeah, we use that term
I don't mean to
advisedly.
laugh, but that caught me off guard. Sorry.
Ed Balls is wanting to cover this because, of course, the reopening of the cases is as a result of the announced local inquiries that obviously his wife was the previous Home Secretary and helped commission.
It's Yvette Cooper, just in case.
Yes. Sammy Woodhouse, who was one of the leads on the rape
What a
gang
vested
inquiry,
interest
actually
in-
went live on Good Morning Britain and exposed that before she went on air, one of the producers had told her not to mention the race or ethnicity or religion of the
joking.
men who abused. No, and they had to do damage control live. They
Unbelievable.
said, "Well, we've been discussing it all morning. We don't know why that happened. We promise you, no one will say." She went, "Well, someone did say that to me." And then just to finish on two particular name and shames, the response by some people who see
Ah, yes, this is the one. Donna Rachel, the one who was laughing and giggling about the rape gang inquiry report. Laughing about how, county lines are phone lines, not border demarcations, can't traffic people over them. It's just like arguing how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. And yeah, turns out this woman, this cunt, who laughed at the horrific torture, rape and grooming of over 250,000 white British girls, paid for by reform.
to game from partisan reasons on this has been disgraceful. There's a woman here who is an independent councillor for I think Shropshire. She did a video where she was laughing about the report. She accused the report of confusing county lines and the difference between counties with county lines, which means phone lines. It's not the case, not what they're referring to.
Yeah, no.
They did some digging, and it turns out this
They're intentionally trying to muddle things. She's intentionally trying to muddy the waters. And yeah, all of her info's out there. She's been absolutely ratioed and bodied on X, and she fucking deserves it. And yeah, this lady is a demon, absolutely. Absolutely. A demon and a grifter of the worst possible kind. Drop a little something in stream suggestions that is topic relevant. Let me take a look here. Oh yes, we'll take a look at that next.
independent councillor is actually on the reform payroll. So there might be some sort of reason for her to take a malicious interpretation. And the same goes for Nadine Dorries, who decided last night
This was so dumb.
to say that Rupert Lowe uses rape victims for political gain before a by-election. Is he a misogynist? As I responded
What
to
a
her,
ridiculous phrase.
just delete your account.
Yeah.
So dumb.
Just delete your
Yeah,
account.
please, yes, exactly. Accusing Rupert Lowe of using child rape gang survivors for personal gain or tacitly defending the politicians who import thousands of said rapists was not... there are things you should post. This was not one of them. Disgraceful. Delete your account. Yeah, just delete your account. Get off the internet. Go touch some grass. There are other things that Freeman has said to demons that she should probably do, but we won't say them here because they're a violation of TOS.
So there are still people to this day, after reading this report, maybe they haven't read it, but they've got no excuse not to.
No, of course she has.
There are still people to this day that will see the screenshots of the most heinous abuse circulating on Twitter, and instead of saying the report's recommendations, as you said, Will, are independent and they're non-statutory, but they're sensible, and we should all adopt them for the sake of the children. There are people that will instead seek to attack the character of the people that conducted the inquiry to make personal political gain.
But coming back to your point,
And that should tell you all you need to know about people like Nadine Dorries and all these other people, and especially that cunt, the Donna whatever her name is, Donna Rachel, who is just laughing about the report and wanted to get off into the weeds and into semantics. Elucidator, welcome in. Lurking for you. Appreciate the lurkies.
point, it's like, well, Rupert Lowe is doing this for political reasons, for a political agenda. Well, he's a politician.
Everything's
I mean,
political.
Yes. Not only is outside of the political arena, everything's still political, but Rupert Lowe is literally a politician. It's hardly unreasonable to say that politician's got a political agenda. It's such a non-charge. Yeah. I mean, look at them parading the corpse of Joe Cox around at the moment, saying, look, we need to advance left-wing multiculturalism under the banner of Joe Cox. That's what she would have wanted. Okay, you're using her death for political gain. Everyone does this. You do this all the time.
This tweet is political.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Nadine Dorries is a
Yes.
politician.
This tweet is political.
She's defending by proxy here, with insinuation, the politicians like Boris that brought in thousands of said rapists into the country.
Yeah.
Yes,
But all
she is effectively defending rape gangs. This sort of behavior right here, this is defending rape gangs. Nadine Dorries defends rape gangs. She is at least implicitly in favor of them. Her response to the rape gang inquiry report should tell you everything that you need to know about her. She is evil.
boils down to is saying, he is a politician I don't support.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they're really saying when they say, oh, they're using it for political gain. Well, you would use it for political gain if it was for your cause, for your side. And so
if she had any sense of decency, any sense of human decency, she could always say, look, not a supporter of Rupert Lowe, but this is a timely report. This needed to happen, and we need to do something about this. But she doesn't possess that sort of decency. Saw that report from Asmongold, all 6 hours. It was insane and intense. Don't know how the people in the UK deal with that kind of shit every day. People would go insane for this. My people are a long-suffering sort of people. Too long, unfortunately.
literally just comes down to he's not my guy.
And look, the real tragedy of this is, and again, I am pragmatic enough to know that the right is now at the point where, you know, we're not going to all sit down and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And for me personally, I am not going to pick a team, because whilst for some unknown reason I can vote in this country, I don't think I should be allowed to vote in this country as a foreign national.
Oh, you're an Anglo.
No, I think until I'm a citizen,
I agree with you.
until I'm a citizen, I should not have the right to vote
I
in this
agree with
country.
you
So
completely.
I think then me picking sides is bad. And also for my job at the moment, I think at the moment it is better to focus on policy and issues
yeah.
and have a set of principles that I believe in. But for too many people, if there's one issue maybe that you should go, you know what, put the restore v reform thing to one side for 24 hours, it is this.
And you
Just
know what?
say, well done for putting a light on this, Rupert. Good job.
Yeah.
We'll go back and, you know, take up arms again tomorrow.
And if Nigel Farage had actually done this inquiry like he said he was going to, I'd be the person saying, look, I don't support Nigel Farage, but well done, this was needed. This was necessary. It's really not that hard.
And you know what? It would then take a lot of sting out of restore attacks as well. Again, you know, like the whole Streisand effect thing here has been fascinating.
Absolutely. All right. Giving that a like, let's drop that into the chats here. They managed to make me angry and pissed off. We all are. We all are. And rightfully so.